Luigi Mangione's father has come forward, revealing a chilling motive, a calculated plan to take down the corrupt pharmaceutical industry. What if the shocking murder of a healthcare CEO wasn't just a random act of violence, but the beginning of something much bigger? Was Luigi a hero fighting against injustice, or a criminal who took justice into his own hands? And could this be the first sign of an even larger rebellion on the horizon? Watch until the end to uncover the truth and see what's his father revealed. And also tell us in the comments, do you see Luigi as a symbol of resistance or a man who went too far? Well, this story starts with his father saying this: "I never thought I'd be the father of someone accused of something like this. Luigi was always my brightest star, my pride. From the time he was a little boy, he loved solving puzzles, building things, figuring out how the world worked. He had this light in him, a curiosity that could fill a room. But somewhere along the way, that light, it dimmed. I'll admit, I didn't see the signs right away. Life gets busy, doesn't it? You think your kids are fine because they're smart, successful, doing well in school. Luigi was at the top of his class, valedictorian, Ivy League graduate, an engineer with a future most parents dream about for their children. But behind all that, there was pain. He started talking about his back pain after a car accident. It was relentless, he said. The surgeries didn't help. He told me once, "Dad, I feel like a prisoner in my own body." I thought he was exaggerating, but now I wonder if I missed something. It was about 6 months ago when everything changed. Luigi stopped coming to family dinners. His texts became sporadic, and when he did reply, they were short, distant. He told his mom he needed space, but I knew something wasn't right. Then he disappeared completely. I remember his mother crying every night, wondering if he was dead or alive. When he finally resurfaced, it wasn't the Luigi we knew. He was angry. He talked about the injustice of the healthcare system, calling CEOs criminals in suits. He said they were mafiosi, profiting off the pain of others. At first, I thought he was just venting, but then he showed me this letter. A manifesto, really. He called it a necessary reckoning. I'll never forget what he said. "Dad, someone has to hold these people accountable. They've built empires on the suffering of others. They think they're untouchable, but they're not. They need to feel what it's like to lose everything." I begged him to let it go. I told him there were better ways to fight for justice, but he wouldn't listen. He looked at me with this conviction in his eyes and said, "You don't understand. I've already made my decision." I had no idea he meant this. No idea he'd take a life, ruin his own, and drag us all into this nightmare. I sit here now, wondering if I could have stopped him. Could I have done more? Said more? I don't know. I just want the world to know. He wasn't always like this. He wasn't born to hate. Something changed in him, and now I'll spend the rest of my life trying to understand why. Luigi, my son, he was always the smartest person in any room, even as a kid. I remember when he was 5 years old, he took apart his toy robot just to see how it worked. He wasn't upset that it wouldn't move again. No, he was thrilled because he'd figured it out. That was Luigi. Curious, brilliant, driven. As he grew up, that drive only got stronger. He wasn't just good at school. He excelled at everything he touched. Valedictorian of his high school class. Accepted into the University of Pennsylvania, one of the best schools in the country. He earned not just one degree, but two, a bachelor's and a master's in engineering. I remember his graduation day like it was yesterday. He gave a speech as valedictorian, standing in front of hundreds of his peers, professors, and proud parents. He spoke about innovation, about using technology to make the world a better place. God, we were so proud. Luigi wasn't just a student, he was a leader. He started a video game club at Penn, teaching other students how to code. He loved creating things, building worlds. I used to think he'd go on to design something revolutionary, maybe a piece of technology that would change lives. And he did, just not in the way any of us expected. He had this charm, this ability to connect with people. That's what made this all the more shocking. Everyone who knew him adored him. His professors, his classmates, they all saw him as someone destined for greatness. How could someone so full of potential, so full of promise, fall so far? Maybe that's why this hurts so much. Luigi wasn't just anyone, he was extraordinary. And maybe that's part of what pushed him to do what he did. When you're that smart, that capable, maybe the weight of the world feels heavier. Maybe he looked at the system and thought, if I don't fix this, who will? But he chose the wrong way. He turned all that brilliance, all that promise, into something destructive. And I can't help but wonder if I should have seen it coming. Did I put too much pressure on him to succeed? Did I miss the signs that he was struggling? Now all I have left are these pictures, these memories of a boy who once dreamed of building a better world. And I'll never understand why he thought tearing it apart was the answer. When I heard what they found on Luigi, I didn't want to believe it. $8,000 in cash, $2,000 in foreign currency, a forged passport. My son, my boy, was planning to run. That much is clear. It's hard to explain what it feels like to realize your child was preparing for something like this. He wasn't just angry, he was calculating, thoughtful. That's what makes it so terrifying. He planned every detail. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. This was months, maybe years in the making. I remember Luigi always being meticulous, even as a kid. His room was always organized, his schoolwork flawless. He'd sit for hours at his desk, working on problems most kids his age wouldn't even attempt. But that same precision, that same attention to detail, it became something darker. He must have thought about every contingency. The cash. It was enough to keep him off the radar for weeks, maybe months. The foreign currency. Probably meant for a quick escape overseas. And the passport. God. It kills me to think of him sitting there, creating a fake identity, imagining a new life where no one would find him. But why? Why go to such lengths? I keep thinking back to our last conversation, months before he disappeared. He said, "Dad, you can't trust the system. It's built to keep people like us down." I thought he was talking about his back pain, the surgeries that didn't work, the endless bills. But now, I wonder if he'd already decided that he was done with it all. And the most painful part is that he never told us. He never gave us a chance to help him. Instead, he vanished, leaving us to wonder, to worry. And when he finally resurfaced, it was like he wasn't my son anymore. He was someone else, someone I didn't recognize. I can't stop thinking about that cash, that passport. Where was he planning to go? What was his end game? Was he planning to run forever? Or did he know he'd eventually be caught and just wanted to delay the inevitable? I've replayed it all in my head so many times. The quiet dinners where he barely spoke, the nights he didn't come home, the months without a word. I should have known, I should have seen the signs, but I didn't. And now, here we are. My son, the brilliant, thoughtful boy I raised, is sitting in a jail cell, accused of a crime I can't even begin to fathom. And I'm left here, wondering if I could have stopped him before he ever packed that bag of cash and decided to run. 6 months. That's how long Luigi was gone, how long we didn't hear from him. 6 months of silence, of wondering, worrying, praying that he was okay. I didn't know then that those months would become the darkest chapter of our lives. It started slowly. At first, his texts became shorter, more distant. "Busy," he'd say. "Can't talk now." We thought he was just overwhelmed with work, maybe still recovering from his surgery. He had always been private, so we didn't push too hard. But then he just vanished. No calls, no emails, nothing. His social media, once full of posts about his travels and friends, went completely dark. His mother and I would sit up late at night, refreshing his accounts, hoping for any sign that he was still out there. We called his friends, his old professors. No one knew where he was. I filed a missing person report, hoping someone would find him. And when nothing happened, I told myself he just needed time. Time to figure things out, to heal. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Luigi had always been so connected to us, to his family. To disappear like that, it wasn't like him. When I look back now, I wonder if those missing months were when it all started. Was he planning this? Was he already lost in the anger and the pain that drove him to do what he did? I think about the cryptic posts he left on Reddit, talking about his fears, his numbness, his frustration with the world. Was that his way of asking for help? And if it was, why didn't I see it? One of his friends sent me a screenshot of a message they'd posted. "Are you okay, Luigi? You haven't answered my calls. Are you coming to my wedding?" Even his friends were reaching out, worried, trying to pull him back. But it was like he disappeared into a void. When we finally found out where he was, it was too late. He was already in custody. And the Luigi they showed on the news wasn't the son I remembered. He looked hardened, angry, like a stranger. I've spent every day since wondering what happened in those months. Where did he go? What was he doing? Was he alone, spiraling deeper into whatever dark thoughts consumed him? Or was he with someone who pushed him further down this path? Those 6 months are a black hole in my memory, a time I'll never get back with my son. And now I'm left with nothing but questions and the unbearable weight of knowing that whatever happened during that time changed him forever. When I saw that footage, Luigi screaming at the cameras, his voice full of anger, accusing the world of being out of touch, it was like a punch to the gut. That wasn't my son. At least, not the son I thought I knew. I've watched that clip 100 times now, trying to understand what was going through his head. The way he shouted, the way he fought against the officers. It was almost theatrical, like he wanted people to see him, to hear him, to believe in whatever twisted sense of justice he'd created in his mind. Growing up, Luigi was never like this. He was quiet, thoughtful. When he spoke, people listened because his words carried weight. He wasn't the kind to raise his voice, let alone scream like that in public. That's what makes this so hard to process. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder, was this all part of his plan? Was he trying to send a message, even in his arrest? Or was it something else entirely? Maybe he wanted people to think he was unstable, unfit to stand trial. Maybe it was his way of justifying what he'd done, making it about something bigger than himself. And then there's the Manifesto, those words he wrote, calling corporate executives parasites, saying this was something that had to be done. It's chilling to think that he truly believed he was in the right, that he saw himself as some kind of avenger. I've asked myself over and over, was that outburst real or was it calculated? Luigi was always so methodical, so deliberate. But the anger I saw in that video, that was raw, that was real. And it scares me to think that he'd been carrying that rage for so long without any of us knowing. What haunts me the most is the look in his eyes. There was no regret, no shame, just this fire, this conviction, like he truly believed he was a hero in some kind of warped story. As a father, I can't reconcile the boy I raised with the man I saw on that screen. I remember teaching him how to ride a bike, how to tie his shoes, how to stand up for what's right. And now, I'm left wondering, where did it all go wrong? Was this outburst his breaking point, or was it his way of telling the world, look at me, listen to me, I'm not crazy, I'm right. I don't know. I don't think I'll ever know. But every time I see that clip, I feel like I'm losing him all over again, and that's a pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. I can't even begin to describe what it feels like to see people online calling your son a hero, a martyr, someone to be admired. It's sickening. I've read the comments, even though I know I shouldn't. They say things like, he did what needed to be done, or finally, someone standing up to the system. Some of them even go as far as to thank him for what he did. Thank him for taking a life. These people, they don't know him. They don't know what he's been through, what we've been through as a family. They've turned him into a symbol, a rallying cry for their anger, their frustrations with the world. But they don't see the pain behind it. They don't see the broken man who thought this was his only option. Luigi wasn't some revolutionary. He wasn't a hero. He was my son, a boy who lost his way, who let his anger consume him. And now these strangers are twisting his story, making him into something he's not. What scares me the most is the idea that someone out there might try to copy him. I've seen posts where people say this is just the beginning, or Luigi showed us the way. It's terrifying to think that this might not end with him, that others could follow in his footsteps because of what they've read online. I want to scream at these people to tell them, you didn't know him. You don't know what he was going through, what we all were going through. But I know it won't matter. They've made up their minds. To them, he's a symbol now, not a person. It's not just the supporters either. The other side is just as cruel. They call him a monster, a psychopath, a disgrace to our family. They say we should have seen this coming, that we failed as parents, as if we don't already blame ourselves every single day. Social media has turned this into a circus, and my son is the main attraction. Every detail of his life, every mistake he made, every choice, it's all out there for the world to pick apart, to judge, to twist into whatever narrative suits them. I keep coming back to one thought. What would Luigi think if he saw this? Would he feel validated? Would he regret it? I don't know, but I do know one thing. This isn't what he would have wanted. Not really. All I can do now is try to remember the boy he was before all of this. The boy who loved to build things, who dreamed of making the world a better place. That's the Luigi I choose to hold on to, not the one the internet has turned him into. My son lived two lives, the one we all saw, brilliant, driven and full of promise, and the one I never knew existed until it was too late. Growing up, Luigi was the kind of kid every parent dreams of. Top of his class, always pushing himself to be better. He wasn't just smart, he was extraordinary. At the University of Pennsylvania, he didn't just study engineering, he excelled in it. Professors adored him, his peers respected him, and every time I visited, someone would pull me aside to say, "You must be so proud of your son." And I was. God, I was. But now I wonder if I was too proud, too blind to see the other side of him. The side that was struggling, angry, and hiding so much from all of us. Luigi used to show me his projects, the apps he was building, the games he was coding. He loved creating things, making something out of nothing. I thought he'd use that brilliance to change the world. And in a way, he did. Just not in the way anyone could have imagined. The prosecutors say he used his engineering skills to plan everything meticulously. They claim he forged documents, mapped escape routes, and even studied surveillance blind spots, all with the precision of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. That's the part I can't reconcile. How did my son, the boy who used to build computer programs for fun, become the man who weaponized that same intelligence to commit such a horrible act? I keep going over every moment, every conversation, trying to figure out when it all changed. Was it the chronic pain that consumed him after his accident, the frustration with a healthcare system that failed him? Or was it something deeper, something I never saw? Even now, as I look at his old certificates and awards, I can't help but feel a pang of guilt. Did we put too much pressure on him to succeed? Did we push him into a world where failure wasn't an option? And then there's the chilling thought. Did his brilliance, his ability to think 10 steps ahead, make this possible? Was his mind not just a gift, but also a curse? Luigi led a double life, and I was only privy to one half of it. The half that smiled at family dinners, that sent me pictures of his latest coding project, that told me he wanted to build something big someday. But the other half, the half that planned and executed something so devastating, I'll never fully understand. All I know is that the son I thought I knew, and the man the world sees now, they feel like two entirely different people, and I'm left here, wondering if I ever truly knew him at all. They're trying to piece it all together, every step Luigi took, every move he made in those days leading up to what happened, and I can't stop thinking about it, about how they're turning my son's life into a timeline of evidence. The investigators say they're building a movie of his movements, stitching together hours of surveillance footage to show where he went, who he spoke to, what he might have been planning. They want to know what happened in those 225 hours he spent in New York City. But the truth is, I want to know too. I can't sleep at night thinking about it. Where was he going? Who was he meeting? Did he already know what he was going to do? Or was he still deciding? The gaps haunt me the most. There are missing hours in the timeline, moments where no cameras caught him, where no witnesses saw him. Those gaps are like black holes, swallowing any chance I have of understanding what pushed him to this point. And then there's the forensic evidence. They're testing the gun, running DNA comparisons, analyzing every little thing they found at the scene. They're so methodical, so relentless, and I keep thinking, this is Luigi's brilliance turned against him. The same precision he used to build things, they're now using to tear apart every decision he made. What hurts the most is knowing they're right to do it. They need answers just like I do. But every time I hear about a new piece of evidence, a shell casing, a fingerprint, a video clip, it feels like another piece of my son slipping away. The investigators say they're trying to create a story to show the jury, a story where Luigi is the villain, the mastermind behind this horrible act. And maybe he is. Maybe that's who he became. But I can't help but remember the other story, the one they'll never see, the story of a boy who loved to build Lego towers, who stayed up late coding video games, who once told me he wanted to invent something that would help people. Now, they're chasing a different version of him, a version I don't recognize, and I'm left here, staring at these papers, trying to reconcile the two. I've heard the prosecutors say it's only a matter of time before they fill in the gaps, before they have every answer they need. But what about me? Will I ever get the answers I need? Will I ever understand why my son did this? All I know is that whatever they uncover, it won't change one thing. I've lost my boy, and no amount of timelines or evidence will ever bring him back. The phone call. That damn phone call, I can't stop thinking about it. The last moments before everything fell apart. They say Luigi was caught on camera, standing on the street, talking on his cell phone just minutes before the shooting. Who was he talking to? What was he saying? I've asked myself those questions every single day since I heard about it. I want to believe it was someone innocent, a friend, a family member, maybe even me. But I know better now. Luigi had already disappeared from our lives by then. He hadn't called us in months. Was it goodbye, a confession, or something worse? I can't shake the feeling that whoever was on the other end of that call knows more than I ever will. Maybe it was someone helping him, maybe it was someone encouraging him, or maybe it was no one at all, a voicemail he left for someone who will never come forward. I keep replaying the scenario in my head, trying to piece it together. What were his last words? Did his voice shake? Did he hesitate? Was he asking for someone to stop him, or was he fully committed to what he was about to do? The investigators tell me they're tracking the call, trying to find out who it was. But every day that goes by without an answer feels like another brick in the wall between me and the truth. And then there's the part of me that doesn't want to know, because what if it was me? What if he tried to call and I didn't answer? What if I could have said something, anything to stop him? I've looked back at my phone, scrolled through the missed calls, the unanswered texts. There's nothing there. But that doesn't stop the guilt from creeping in. It doesn't stop me from thinking about all the times I didn't pick up when he called, all the times I told him I was too busy to talk. The call haunts me. It's this final unanswered question that I don't think I'll ever get an answer to. And even if I do, will it really bring me any peace? Luigi made a choice that day, and whether he was looking for help, saying goodbye, or just buying time, I wasn't there to hear it. I wasn't there when he needed me most. Now I'm left with nothing but the echoes of a call I'll never hear and a silence I'll never escape. They told me about the evidence, laid it out like it was just another case. A gun, a silencer, forged IDs, thousands in cash. It's so clinical to them. But to me, every piece feels like a dagger to the heart. I can't understand how my son, the same boy who built science projects in the garage and spent hours coding video games, could have turned into someone capable of planning something like this. They say the evidence is overwhelming, airtight even, but all I see are fragments of a person I thought I knew. The gun. I didn't even know he owned one. Where would he have gotten it? And the silencer. Why? It's such a calculated, deliberate thing to have. That's not the Luigi I raised. Then there's the forged IDs. Luigi was brilliant with technology, always ahead of the curve. I used to marvel at his ability to figure things out so quickly. Now, I wonder if that brilliance was the very thing that led him down this path. Did he create those IDs himself? Did he sit there, in the dark, planning every detail? And the cash, $8,000 in cash, $2,000 in foreign currency. What was he planning to do? Where was he planning to go? I keep imagining him stuffing that money into a bag, thinking he could just disappear, leave everything behind. Was he running from what he'd done, or was he running to something worse? The prosecutors call it premeditation. They say every piece of evidence is proof of his intent. And maybe they're right. But when I look at it, all I see is a boy who was lost, a boy who was angry, in pain, and trying to make sense of a world that had failed him. And then there's the manifesto, his words, his thoughts, written in his own hand. They say it's the smoking gun, the key to understanding why he did it. But it doesn't make sense to me. He was angry, yes, disillusioned. But to take it this far, to end a life, it feels impossible. I've read it over and over, trying to find a hint of the boy I raised, but all I see are the words of a stranger, a man consumed by rage, by a sense of justice that was so twisted it became something unrecognizable. The evidence is there. I can't deny it, but as a father, I can't help but search for something else. A reason, an explanation, anything that could make sense of all this. They say it's an open and shut case, that the evidence speaks for itself. But to me, it's not just evidence. It's my son's life laid bare, his mistakes, his choices, his downfall. And as much as I hate what he did, I can't stop loving the boy he used to be. The boy who dreamed of building a better world, not tearing it apart.